Hi, everybody. Welcome to Keep It Spiritually Simple. I'm your host, Sandra McEllis. We have our beautiful guest, Dr. Nancy Clark, on today, and we're going to talk about what's happening with the energetics, what's happening here on the earth plane through those energetics, and what might be able to assist us. So, just to ensure that our show continues with its rotating algorithms, we really do appreciate you hitting like, subscribe, share, comment, and yeah, that way you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And be sure to tune into any previous episodes we've had with Dr. Nancy. She's gone through a lot about her books and then, puts in a lot of intuitive work into there. Spirit, everything spirit driven and straight from the heart. So, hi, my friend. How are
Hey,
you?
great. It's always good to be here with you.
Well, let's just jump in. Let's just go. You take the lead.
Okay, well, I wasn't sure if you wanted me to go into ascendance or if you wanted to talk about the energetics on the planet. I wasn't sure where you wanted to start today's episode with.
Well, I think right now, since many of us who are pretty tuned in know that we're getting plummeted with CMEs and the KP index and the Schumann resonance and all that stuff, and it's creating, I think, some discord and disconnect. Um, and if we do one extra thing, it tips our balance scales very quickly and easily. So maybe if you have some insight on that, I think we also talked about on top of all that, across the globe, but here in the United States, we always have off weather patterns. Like all of a sudden something got stirred up here or there. And as I was saying earlier, in DC here, we're going to get 3 days of snow at like 20 inches, maybe more, maybe less. Um, which has people already off balance because do I have enough toilet paper, bread? Do I have gas in my car?
Mhm.
Do I have enough tomato soup and snacks for the kids? When there's 50 to 60% chance with a blizzard like this, your power's going out and you're not cooking anyway. So I would make sure you had buckets with toilet paper, maybe because toilets don't flush. So people are not thinking very clearly, but we're getting this double whammy. We're having stuff happening in the current atmosphere, and then we've got stuff coming from the stratosphere. So I'm kind of getting this like multi-decker sandwich, and we're in between. A piece of us is between each layer.
Yes. Yeah, we are being hit with a lot. And as we were just chatting quickly before we went on camera, was off camera, I should say, that there is a difference between burnout and growth. And I sat down last night and I was thinking about this and there was some things that came to me and I wrote them down. So forgive me if I reference my notes again because I don't want to miss anything that I wrote down. But it said, right now, life is faster and faster and faster and faster. It seems like we're hanging on with our fingernails to keep from flying off the planet. It's just moving so quickly. Our life and what's expected of us and responsibilities and it just seems that it's getting louder as well. And it just feels like more is being revealed, and therefore we feel less stable in this environment. One of the things was, which we've talked about before, was staying grounded. And one of the things that's not just emotionally and mentally, but it's also physically. And for those of you that are not familiar with being grounded, one of the things is with our digital age, electromagnetics build up within us because our cell phones, we're always holding our cell phones, we're always in front of computers and this sort of thing. So, in front of TVs, and it's good to kick off our shoes and walk on the ground. It might be a little hard right now in DC with the snow coming, but there are grounding technology that actually you can connect and it grounds to the ground and it goes through like the electrical outlets because the electrical outlets in our house are grounded, so you'll plug this into the electrical outlet, and I think some of them are pads that you can lay on your bed. So while you're at night, you're being grounded. So people can go on Google and look up these products. They're available obviously on Amazon and other other companies. But yeah, that's something for like the winter time. It's not always conducive for us to be able to ground. Walking on the beach, ocean water, the salt water is another way of getting demagnetized, because we have this buildup of this electrical current that builds up in us. And I had a friend years ago, he was growing up and he played with Native American Indian kids. And when he would go visit the his friend's parents, they were always yelling at the kids to say, take off your shoes, those will make you sick, because most of our shoes have rubber on the bottom, so they're insulated, so we're not getting the energies from the earth, and we're not demagnetizing because all this energy comes through us and it goes out our feet. So that's important, that we have come so disconnected that we don't realize we're so disconnected from nature and the planet, that we need to kind of learn about these grounding techniques, which really will help us physically as well. And so, one of the things is eat real food, sleep on schedule, move the body, even if it's just walking. And here's a big one, touching nature, pets, and water, trees, that sort of thing. So, I was in Scottsdale yesterday. And as I was driving through, I'm looking at all, I call them the cactus men, those really tall cactuses with their arms that stick out. And it's just so hilarious. I'm just talking to him as I'm driving by. Hey, how's it going? And then there's one area between Sedona and Phoenix Scottsdale area where there's this natural um, area. It's a national park, and they're just loaded, like thousands of them. And then once you get into Scottsdale, Phoenix area, you see a little bit, not so much, I think, because so much building has gone on, but there is this one area, and it's so spectacular to see them. So I'm just talking with them and as I'm driving by, but it just helps us to kind of remember that we're not the only sentient beings on the planet. And in the future, people talk about robots and stuff like that. And I was hearing from the plants kingdom that they will not have robots work in the field with them. They really love to connect with humans and the human consciousness. And even in the future, there will be people working in the fields with the plants, with farming and that type of thing. So I thought that was very interesting. That little download that I had gotten about the plant kingdom is that they just really love to interact with us. So excuse me, when I used to live in Florida, when I would take walks, I would touch the trees, the barks of the trees, and just connect with their energy and their wisdom, because the trees hold a lot of wisdom, just like crystals do. So they're our wisdom keepers. So when you're connecting with them, you're tapping into their wisdoms and their downloads and just their energy. So it's really helpful to us psychically, emotionally, spiritually, physically, because I know they've even found, when they bring dogs or cats into like elder care, or I guess people who are retired in these centers where they are living, and it just changes how they feel. And so yeah, that's one of the things that was coming to me about how we forget our consciousness connecting with other consciousness really does help us, emotionally, especially. And just jump in if there's something that I happen to, tap into that you want to talk about.
Well, you just said something like talking to the cactuses, and cactuses have to be the energetic hug, because I was getting this like poster in my head going, have you hugged your cactus today? And
It might be a little hard.
anyone in their right mind knows they would, like hug a tree. Have you hugged a cactus yet today? I think I'd like to say that to people when I want to get really smart mouth, like, hey, listen, I'm busy. Go hug a cactus. I'll be right with you. You know what I mean? Um, but how cool is that to, the power of just talking to them as you're driving by, because, everything goes into the energetic airways and they receive it. And we already know the little bits of talk we do for houseplants, the difference that it makes in them. But we forget about their bigger brothers and sisters out there in the earth plane who might like a little attention too. So
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
that's awesome, and that's very grounding because the energy just comes back in a loop to you, through you, is what I was seeing. So yeah, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, this goes on and on. I mean, we could just do an episode just on this because, we get into the animal kingdom and how they communicate telepathically. And I was having this conversation with my tech team, and they come in on Fridays. And one of the things, I had all of a sudden all these ravens come into the backyard. And I said, well, what's going on? What are we having? A big bird conference here, and one of my tech guys was like, oh no, I think it's me. I fed a raven and some potato chips or something. He had an extra bag of potato chips or a little small bag, and so he had them left over. And he was in, I guess, somewhere in the city, in Flagstaff, and so he said, "Now I think they're after me for more." Potato chips or something. And then the other one jumps in, the other tech. Now they're both American Indian of descent, and their heritage is, and so I have one that's Hopi and Navajo, and the other one's full Navajo. And I just love their energy being a part of this project. And so he's like, oh, yeah, they remember. I had a friend that wasn't nice to a raven. And the next thing you know, they're like dive bombing him as he's trying to get to his car. We're all cracking up. I said, oh, yes, they do communicate and they do remember who's
Mhm.
nice to them and who's not.
Yes.
So, so yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
have I
really,
have heard that, but I'm also getting the visual of like, he's 50 miles away. He's fed some chips to a raven. Next thing you know, his next stop, all the ravens are there because they called ahead. They literally called ahead and say, food's available. There he comes. He's saying, what his address is going to be because
well,
they can see.
that was so funny because I said to him as we're talking, and he goes, "Oh, I only feed urban ravens. I don't feed the wild ones." I was like, "Oh, so now I said, now I don't know if they're going to be happy with you now." Oh gosh, but
Yeah, they've got their own tribe and their own gang. But I have heard that about birds. I've also heard that, especially about crows. If you're ever
yeah.
mean to a crow and they're all in the same family, that they will gather their family and they will hunt you down. And the last 3 years, I've had crows in my water spouts right above my bedroom that have been nesting and laying eggs each year.
Mm,
And I can hear them, I can see them. And you know what I do? I just bless them because it's much. And then the guy came to go clean the vent, the spouts one day, and I was like, oh, they're gonna think I did that to you. But they say they still came back and renested. So I must have
okay.
caught them with no eggs or no babies in there. But I thought, oh my God, they're gonna hate me and their whole family's gonna come after me.
You
So I had to
don't want
quickly
to be
put
on
out
the
there.
list.
I did not order him to clean the gutters. I did not. Sorry. Yeah. All right,
Yes.
well, let's keep going because I think, oh, and the other thing when you're talking about grounding and ocean water, I was wondering your thoughts on, many of us take baths, Epsom salt and Dead Sea salt baths, and that helps to filter the energy. For me, I get in and bless the
Yeah.
water and ask for the vibration of the water to be the purest and the highest while I'm in it, and to filter through whatever it is that I need to align electrically, magnetically. And then when the water is released down the tub, that anything that is negative is sent straight back to source. It's not recycled back into the world again.
You're a very responsible soul. Very conscientious, which is important. But I think that's what happens when you become more awake and aware. You're aware of your actions. And it's interesting. That's one of the things that came to me, is also I wanted to maybe touch on today, if possible. And that was the power of our thoughts. And our thoughts actually create thought forms. And we kind of forget about this sometimes, that each thought has the power that you give it. And so a fearful thought becomes stronger with your attention. And that is one of the things I know I've briefly mentioned on. Maybe I should talk about it a little more, but it's, where is your attention at all times? What are you feeding your attention with, or what are you giving your attention to, I should say? Is it negative, fearful thoughts or memories of the past that was fearful, or is it, are you connecting with source, which is your soul? And also, we don't realize that our thoughts have create these thought forms, which are actually entities. Now, these entities are not ensouled. They're basically just pure energy, but some of these thought forms can be negative, but some of them can be positive too. Like what you were talking about is blessing the baby birds and that type of thing. That's a thought form in a positive format, and therefore that grows and that adds to the calmness and blessing on the planet. And then also that because we are always running so quickly and we feel, our mind gets so chaotic that unfortunately can lead to being in a situation where we tend to have more fear-based or negative, get into negative thought loops. So it's not something to be afraid of because it's just nothing that can harm us, but because it's energy, but this energy is circulating all around the planet. So if we're having fearful thoughts or negative thoughts, that's definitely going to affect the collective and the overall energy on the planet, as opposed to those that are sending positive thoughts out to the planet, such as one of the things they say is visualize the planet and all this love and light surrounding all the completely like wrapping around the whole planet. And because if we're talking about ascension, ascension happens through our collective consciousness, the whole collective raising their frequencies. And so it's not something that somebody else is going to do, it's something we all are going to have to do together. And so I wanted to just check to make sure. There was one more thing that came up on meditation. Spiritual contemplation can heal you, but it can also calm you. So if people are feeling stressed and anxious and so much is on their plate, um, they can also, they said, what was coming into me was music, laughter, dancing, hugging someone, um, and becoming free, or at least acknowledging your thought forms. So acknowledging and being responsible with your thoughts, I think is a lot of it. But when I say about being free from your thoughts, is when you do meditation or contemplation, whether you're reading spiritual material and you're connecting it at a higher frequency and you're getting beyond the mental plane, that's when you're free from the mind, and the power and the control of the mind is because you've gotten above the mind and now you're into non-duality, which is checking in with source, connecting to your higher self, which is your soul. And that helps as well. Any anything to add?
Well, I just know that everything starts with a thought. And if we allow it to just sort of marinate there for a while, even before it comes through our mouth, it can change our energy completely.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on what that thought is, right? Uh, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. So if you know that, then you can set your intentions to maybe cancel out or X or tweak a thought so that it has a higher vibration to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything that goes through the mind as a thought, it shows in your energetic field first and then in your physical and emotional, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it all starts in the mental. So, and some of these thoughts that we're picking up don't even belong to us. So
Yes.
sometimes asking, oh, where did that come from? Or why do I attach a little more fear or frustration to that thought than I have in the previous past? Like, why would I allow my nervous system to get, jiggy when it's something pretty simple? So we have to align ourselves with all of that. So I love what you're saying about the importance of, change your thought, change the energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then see how you're feeling in that moment just by changing it. So it's a mind jigsaw puzzle. You look
Mm-hmm.
at it as it's just a, game. I'm going to choose different words to express that particular thought that have a higher vibration, right? Even if they don't come out of my
Yeah.
mouth, I am not going to carry this around in my prime real estate.
Yes. Yeah, our attention's so valuable and precious. Actually, that's the external, how should I say? It's like the external part of our soul. It's one of our imagination is one, our attention is another. And so what you're giving your attention to is what you're giving your soul energy to. And then you brought up something that I wanted to tap on, which is subliminal messages, which comes through
Yes.
advertising, the news, things like that. So you got to kind of watch what you're exposing your mind to, the type of music you listen to. A lot of this stuff has energy attached to it. And so tapping into how you feel. If you don't feel good when you're watching the news, you might want to question watching the news, which a lot of it is a narrative anyways, and not always accurate. But it's something that we do need to watch what the intake of what's coming into our mind and really guard our mind as something very precious because the energy that's attached to all this input of information that's put in is of different frequencies. Is it of a lower frequency or a higher frequency? And that's why we talked about in a previous episode, like you had mentioned, instead of watching all this junk on TV or movies and stuff that isn't helping you physically, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, it's actually harming you. Because it's of a very low frequency and people are trying to raise their frequency. If they're going to manage getting along in this new world that we're in, you're going to have to raise your frequency to a level that you can handle this frequency. But right now, we're being fed all this low frequency energy because they want to keep everything as status quo and the way it has been, but that's not possible anymore because now the frequency and the light flooding into the planet is of such a high nature that those that are going to really manage and thrive in this new frequency now that's in our solar system and in our galaxy, which of course we're a part of, so it's going to affect us. They're going to have to, excuse me, get with the program and start to really limit and be protective of what they're exposing their physical form to, mental, emotional, and because it's going to affect our frequency. And how many times have we turn something on? We're like, oh, this is total trash. This is not even worth the time and energy to watch it or listen to it. And so I think that's a lot of to be more. And the other thing is people are saying, well, I know I don't have any time. It's like, well, if you turned off all the devices, you'll have a lot more time to get out in nature and hug a tree and touch flowers or go out and just walk the neighborhood and say hello to people or just talk to the ravens or something, ask them
Or
how they're doing today.
yeah, or just brush up against a cactus. Sure, no problem. And you know what else I'm thinking too, when you talked about the programming, many people, they have a tough day, right? And so they come home and they're like, okay, this is my space where I can decompress. But what they'll do is they'll go turn on one of these ridiculous types of drama, shows or comedy or whatever it may be. And they're only trading one stagnant energy for another stagnant energy.
Mhm.
They just happen to think because they can take off their shoes and be in the privacy of their own home, they're decompressing. But it's really a false decompressing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. We've been fed a lot of junk, and so we get addicted to junk, mental junk. It's like I call it mental junk food. And so once you get used to eating, a lot of processed food, you crave it. And well, it's no different with uh, mental junk food. And so we've been fed it for so many centuries that we've just gotten addicted to it. And so in the beginning, the mind's like, well, this is kind of boring when they start reading spiritual material or listening to spiritual material. Um, but it does make you feel better. It gives you more energy. It actually is healing and calming you because it's of a very high frequency. And I think when people start to realize how precious their mental and emotional and psyche and how that affects us physically, then I think people would be a lot more, discriminative of what they're going to associate with. or expose themselves to.
Yeah, and you know, another thing is coming to mind about the energetics and how people read the energetics unconsciously. When I used to teach infant massage, um, I always would say to the mom and the dad, do you ever notice that the evening where you want to detach and maybe go to dinner and you've gotten dressed up and you're ready to get out the door, that's when your baby starts to have the biggest fit of all? Like something's happening, they wind up throwing up on your good clothes. Everybody across the board would say yes. And that is because the nervous system of children, pets, plants, etc., are truly attached to you as one.
Mm.
So when you subconsciously and consciously try to separate yourself from all that, it has a huge effect on everything else in your home. So if you've got these shows on that are really truly, if you sat down and go, what is the real value of what I'm about to watch right now? What does it honestly do for me? You know, you may
Mm-hmm.
turn them off, but it's all absorbed in your furniture and in your walls and in your home and in your clothes and in your skin. Just like
Mm-hmm.
people who are accustomed to eating spicy foods, if they go to someone's house who isn't a spice cooker and they have a much, everything tastes bland and tastes terrible, because we're always looking for that next dopamine high. So we're
Mm-hmm.
literally changing our neurons to not respond in the way that I think our anatomy was designed to respond, because of all the electronics, because of all the plastic foods, because of all the, you know, pharmaceuticals, because of all, you know, whatever and whatever along the pharmaceutical line. I'm not going to get deep in that. But so many things are changing because we're kept so busy, busy, busy that we have absolutely no clue what it's like to actually sit down and relax. And when we do, we think it's wrong. Oh, there's so much I could be doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
I should not be sitting on my hands doing this right now. And then people will work with, but I deserve it. I worked up to this, so I deserve this junk television or this junk food. So we play all these different, you know, mind fuckery to convince ourselves that we're normal in this normal moment when it's very abnormal. And like you said,
Mm-hmm.
with all this light and energy hitting the planet right now, you know, our nervous systems already feel a little bit tasered, but it's your opportunity to step up and hit your control dials and learn to maneuver this machinery called your avatar
Mm-hmm.
to the best of your ability. Sorry, I didn't mean to be long-winded, but that was just
No, no, you brought up a lot. Like one of it was stagnant energy. You know, when you're a lot of these houses you get into, and it's psychic stench. It's very stagnant energy, and that's why they say burning incense, saging the inside of your house, blessing the inside of your house to kind of clear a lot of this energy out that's been brought into our homes through TVs, movies, music, what have you, arguments, that type of thing. So it definitely needs that on a periodic basis, depending on what's going on in certain households. And so, yeah, I always am so happy when you share because it brings up other points of interest to discuss.
well, you know, I'm a realist, so I think about everything as in my life path as a real, or as a simple and realist person. Just like, you know, the other day, I realized, yes, when I was picking up the jug to feed my plants water, I was saying, bless this water and hello to my plants and so on. But yesterday I came home with a bottle of filtered water, and this time I set it in front of my plants. And I said, I'm going to give you time to get to know each other and calibrate. I'm not going to give you that whatever it is that I'm giving you, because it could be like an ice cold shower, like, hey, wait a second, hold on, give us a minute. You know, that's kind of how I visualized them. Like, stop, you know. So this time I don't know why I came home and I set a bottle of water, filtered water down in front of them. I said, I'm going to give you guys time to get to know each other and calibrate. So when I do feed it to you, it's of the perfect essence that you need for your life force.
It's funny you bring that up because I was talking to at the time I was living in Florida at the time, and I decided to have oak wood floors put into my bedroom because I wanted the wood energy in my room. And the installer, once I picked it out, and then when it came in, he brought it to the house and he let it sit there for 3 days. He said the wood has to get used to the environment of the house. It just, you can't just put it in right away. You have to let it get to, it's like you say, get to know each other. And I just thought it's funny when you brought that up. It reminded me of that incident, and how the intelligence probably of the water was talking to you, saying, "Well, just don't water me yet. Just let's get to know each other first."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and I
just
do this. I do the same thing. I'll pour a glass of water and I'll just let it sit and calibrate to my room, so that when I do ingest it, it's ingesting the love that I put in around me, instead of just going, "Oh, hey, drink of water. Okay, gotta go." You know what I mean? Because I think we do need to come back to some sincere mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And now is the time to step into that mindfulness. And only we can take the control dials and say, I will be mindful. I'm going to pay attention to every little thing that I do. And is it giving it to myself with love? Am I receiving it or giving it to others with love? How am I touching the counter? How hard am I walking on the ground? You know, am I rushing around? Am I getting my to-do list done? And is that more important than the time that you need to give self-nurturing? Because the more you self-nurture, the more you're going to nurture and love the self around you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, you're saying it's all true. Yeah, it's definitely all true. I think there is a sense of, in the Western world, we feel guilty when we actually have this quiet time, this peaceful time, this calm time. But that's what calms our nervous system. Getting a massage, listening to soothing music, um, hanging out with the house plants and chatting with them, or out in the backyard, and talking to the squirrel that skips by, and that type of thing. It's, we think it's ridiculous, but actually, it's almost like the animal and plant kingdom is like, when are the humans going to wake up? When are they going to realize, hey, we're here all along talking to you, but they're not hearing us? We've gotten so disconnected from these other kingdoms because we've been told lies about, well, we're the only ones as humans that are sentient beings. Well, news to earth, the human collective, that's not true. That's not true at all. They're very sentient, they're very aware, and very alive. And it's us that really needs to have this understanding of the truth of life here in on planet Earth. So,
Yeah, and getting in touch with nature a little bit. I don't know if I've told you the story, but a year ago, I had a squirrel stuck in the wall, and I had to ask the squirrel to leave, and it wouldn't leave. And so finally, I just had to have an exterminator come. But I said, "Don't, please don't kill it. Give the trap so it can get out." Right. So I had a
mhm.
final conversation before the trap went up. And then next thing you know, the squirrel went out, but he couldn't get back in. And then it went on my back deck and took a cushion that I've had for a decade and tore it to shreds, and
Mm.
took it up right in front of the house into a tree and made its own bed.
I remember
And
you telling this
yes,
story.
and basically looked down at me like, bitch, I told you I wasn't leaving and I wasn't paying you rent in the wall. So I'm going to take what belongs to you. Well, all I could do was laugh. I laughed. I was, first of all, I was flabbergasted, and then I just laughed. And I just thought, okay, well, you know what we're going to do? I'm going to leave this cushion out here for a couple more days so you can get every drop out of there and get your apartment, your high rise, all cleaned up. So animals have memory, whether you think they do or not. And it's those simple things that bring you amazing pleasure in life. Pets, when you mentioned them going into assisted living and elder care, babies, they change the heart center. And I think if we had a frequency meter
Mm,
anywhere we go, and we could just frequency meter when our heart is in true, pure source love, or
mhm,
and why, and it's always the simple things that astound us,
mm.
and when it's not. And the only way to do that is get in tune with your energy and your frequency field, and your frequency field will tell you when you're out of alignment, you know?
Yeah. I've often said, I wish there was a meter. I mean, psychics and mediums have this ability to read people's frequency and energy. And I just wish there was a number that was over everybody's head as to where their
Yeah.
frequency level is. And then you knew right away if they're being truthful or they're being sincere or actually the type of person who's standing in front of you. Now, we kind of do this energetically more and more now because of the light codes being turned on in our DNA, where we are starting to read people, excuse me, energetically. And there's another thing too, people aren't understanding because the divorce rate is really high, and that's just because there's a lot of changes going on. And well, what's going on with that? That's because energetically, people who do not match are being separated. It's like if you're in an abusive or toxic relationship, one person is going to pull away and say, I can't do this anymore. And it's because they're just, it's not a frequency match, and it hasn't been for quite some time, but it's now at a point where high frequency people are going to be attracted to high frequency people. Low frequency people are going to be attracted to low frequency people. And I think this is in the best interest of those that are working on themselves, as far as not like it's like work, but we're being conscious beings in this, in the fact of we are watching what we're being exposed to, and being conscious and awake enough to recognize that the people and situations that are in our life, if they're not of the highest, if they don't serve our highest and best, then things are going to need to change, because as we change internally, things are going to change externally, because you just pull away these people, just start to leave your life in a variety of different ways. It's not that we've done something wrong. See, that's another thing in our society. It's like, oh, you failed if you went through a divorce, or oh, you failed if the marriage didn't last forever. And in many cases, multiple partners come into our life for a variety of different reasons, to teach us different things, to expose us to different environments and situations. And so I think that is definitely a lie that's been told as well, because I think that relationships help us and serve us in a variety of different ways. And so we have no problem with friends coming and going, but all of a sudden, when it comes to relationships, oh, the rules are different. Well, not, I mean, Spirit doesn't see it that way. Spirit sees it as what's in the best interest for you. What are you going to get the maximum amount of growth and while you're here in the earth school? And a lot of it, unfortunately, challenges and tests and difficulties actually is what strengthens us, because we've had to learn how to navigate to get through these different situations. And we're not obviously the same person that we were when we do get done with these situations. So yeah, it's at, you know, the Earth School is definitely where we are filled with lots of challenges and trials and difficulties and pain and suffering. Yes, joy is there too, but there's a lot of, because that is part of our growth, is that we do learn a lot of times through pain and suffering, probably more than just through joy and ease. So it's definitely, I just throw that out there for people to remember who may be going through a difficult time, or they're in the process of a separation or divorce, that you've not failed. Spirit has something else for you. And a lot of times, you know, people walk down these paths together, and at some point there's a fork in the road where one has to go one direction and one has to go the other direction, because they can no longer be walking down the same road. If one person has raised their frequency to such a high level, they can't go down that one road anymore, because the road for them has changed. They need to go, you know, uphill to continue on their spiritual journey. And so maybe there's somebody in the audience that needed to hear that today, because I wasn't planning on sharing that at all. But yeah.
Well, I love the way your mind's going, because you know there's certain trauma dramas that do not need to be a life sentence. Marriage does not have to be one of them. If two people have changed their goals and their frequencies and things that they want to achieve, then hopefully they can negotiate a separation and go about their way and have wish each other wellness at the byways, right? At the fork in the road.
Mhm.
Um, but I also think we're awakening to a lot of the choices that we have previously made that weren't in our highest good, or we overrode maybe our gut instincts. And
Mhm.
we also know that there's many of studies out there that when you're on the birth control pill, you will never pick the right partner. That's a fact.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and then you're guilted into staying, or shamed into staying. Um, and this goes with not just relationships, but it's with jobs, it's with anything. And I think we're at the point right now where it's like, you know what? Hold on, I need to step off of this highway and I need to figure out where I am, how I got here, what I truly want, what's in the best interest of what my soul's path is, not what my mental ego's path is.
Mhm. Yeah, self-evaluation is so important. We don't have enough quiet time in our life to really tune in and listen to what our higher self, which is our soul, is that guidance system, that internal compass, because we're too busy with, excuse me, distractions.
Well, we're never taught to really give that internal compass, that internal innate voice, that intuitive, that higher self that is you, the God source that resides inside of this energetic physical body. We don't give it the power it deserves because we're taught to override it. And
Hmm.
so, and now we're tuning into, oh, here's a dial I want to play with a little bit. I want to learn
Hmm.
a little bit more about my God self and what works best for me that generates the highest volume and value of love, and learn how to get it up even higher so that a lot of this other stuff is no longer holding me down or holding me in a place where I don't see my true value as a soul driven person versus a physical egoic program that we're in. Now, I have a question for you, Nancy. So with all this energy hitting the planet right now, and apparently, from what I scrolled and saw last night, was the KP index and the CMEs and
Hmm.
so are at this record breaking high. Now, I don't know how much of that I believe about record breaking, or is this a cycle that just comes around? But how can we best, outside of the tips and suggestions that we've just discussed, but is there anything else that maybe viewers could tap into?
I think we have pretty much gone over it. I know the nervous system is highly excited, but we're not helping matters with a lot of our lifestyle that we have. So the best thing is calmness, and start to look at, is there anything I can clear away from my life that's really not that necessary? And if I do have activities in my life, is it life-giving? Is it really helping me? So this life force, which is in everything and surrounds everything, and is this the light that's coming in. So we're getting stronger and stronger photon storms, and it's going to continue. It's not going away. It's not like, oh, in 5 years, this, no, it's going to continue to get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And we're going to need to learn how to adapt, or a lot of people have will be leaving the planet through their choice because they just don't want to they don't know how to handle this, or they don't want to play in this light. They'd rather play in darkness. There's a variety of different reasons. It's not a one size fits all. So there's a lot of personal choice here going on, if people want to elevate or not. It's not like you can do something wrong, because it's as I've said, source is always, welcomes us to, because we are source. We're actually source in physical form. And part of the reason we came into physical form is to experience our power, to be co-creators and to create what we want to experience. And so a lot of this is, it's not that, yes, destiny plays a role, but also free will plays a role. It's both apply here in the physical reality. But I think just kind of sorting through our life and realizing what's going to help me as we're moving into this golden era, we're moving also into we've moved out of the Kali Yuga, gone into the golden age, and that's where this light just starts flooding. It's getting higher and higher and higher and higher. But also, we're in the age of Aquarius, and Aquarius is all into enlightenment and spiritual evolution. More and more people are going to be waking up, tuned on, and turned on in line. And a lot of it is the challenges. It's going to be too much for a lot of people to just business as usual isn't going to work anymore. So that's part of what's going to wake people up is it's going to get harder and harder, and they're going to realize I got to change. I can't just continue to eat junk food and feed my mind junk food and just swayed. However, I think people are going to have to be more intentional, and that's causing them to really start asking the big questions, which allows them to start going on this spiritual journey to know who they are, why they came here, why now, what's your purpose work, what's your vocational, and so there's a lot of questions that's asked, and sometimes through these challenges that with they situations they find themselves in, they're forced to start asking these questions, and then they actually sometimes end up being forced to change. But no one's going to be forced to change against their will. I mean, if people want to stay in a low vibrational frequency, then they will. But it's not like anybody's doing anything wrong. It's not like you're behind. Everyone's going to wake up when they're meant to wake up and how they're meant to wake up, because that's what's going to be meaningful and impactful to them. And then we start getting into integration. Okay, so now you're on the path, and now it's time to start integrating this stuff. If you're still watching junk TV, you're obviously you've missed something. You're not integrating the spiritual principles, and one of them is the law of cause and effect. Your actions are definitely going to affect you in your frequency and your emotions, your physical form. I mean, it's all integrated. You are a multidimensional being. And that means that when you're thinking, when you have a thought, you're in the mental plane. When you're feeling something, you're in the emotional plane, which is the astral plane. When you're doing, let's say, I don't know, walking on a beach or whatever, you're obviously in the physical plane. So we're traveling these different dimensions all the time. We have a thought, we have an emotion, we have an action, we have a movement, we're that's where we're multidimensional, because you're moving in and out of these dimensions constantly. And if you're not awake and aware, you're just kind of like, you're not watching your thoughts. You're not really watching what is going, the intake, the energy. You're much more guarded when you realize how important it is to you physically, emotionally, mentally, psychically, how very important it is. You become very, very aware. You become very protective of what you're exposing yourself to, people, situations, that type of thing as well. So I think that once people start on this journey, they start to realize they got to step it up, because they can't be lazy anymore. They have to really stay awake and stay aware of what are you saying to people? How are you? What are your thoughts towards other people? How are you living your life? You're an example. If you're a lighthouse to others, then you are an example to others. And sometimes we forget that people are always watching our behavior and how we interact with people and that type of thing. So I just kind of want to throw that out there, because integration is constant throughout our life as we move up into another higher frequency and I love using the example of the grade system that we have, our educational system here. It's like when you've mastered the principles of third grade, then you get into fourth grade, but you have to be prepared to go into the frequency and energy of fourth grade. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to sustain yourself in fourth grade, because you're not going to be able to manage and handle the homework that's given to you, and the assignments and the tests and the challenges. So, and also you're going to be interacting with other fourth graders or 12th graders, whatever grade you're next moving into. And so that's, I think we have to remember, like if everybody's saying, well, I want all this higher information, I want all this higher frequency and all these downloads and all this stuff. Well, are you ready for that? Have you proven yourself at the level below that that you can sustain yourself at that level. You know, that's one thing. You have to be successful at the level that you're at currently if you want to move into the next level. And so, what are we doing right now on a daily basis? Is so important. So self-care, yes, is definitely important, but that's part of self-care is basically watching your thought diet, not just what we put in our mouths, but what there's so much that goes into this being the watchman at the gate, as I say. You're watching what goes through that gate. You're not just letting the gates wide open and let just anything float in. So so yes, I think it's a good reminder for us all.
Well, I think once you get mindful, you're going to realize how open your gates have been.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to be mindfully correcting the adjusting of the gate, narrowing it a little bit, as well as being very selective on who, what, where, how things do enter, right? And I think we're at that critical turning point now where many of us are feeling very tightly coiled. And
Mm-hmm.
so, some of us who are even the calmest and aware are feeling a little bit of a tight fuse. Like, I could feel it in myself because as much as I want to say this is a lot of freaking work, it's my duty because I'm getting to know myself and the deeper layers of thyself in order for me to navigate this world and all that it has to offer in a different way. So I'm on a different pathway. I'm in a different byway, and then what you were saying about, people waking up. I remember years ago, somebody had just kind of woken up and they were like, what is wrong with all these people? Why don't they just get it? And I go, they're all on their own timing chain.
Mm-hmm.
They're all their DNA is meant to wake when they're ready to wake. They're in preparation of all of that. And she was still kind of like, what? And I said, well, I said, what about I could sit here and say, I've been waiting for you to wake up and you just woke up. But what point is that? I'm sure there was people, in my childhood that were waiting for me to wake up because I felt like I
Mm-hmm.
came in awake. But what I'm saying is we need to not be so hard on ourselves and take one day at a time. And what can we do to create sound bites that include as much love as possible so that we can be in tune with that and feel that and maybe carry it on to the second sound bite, right? And have
Yeah.
multiple sound bites consecutively and then, add on to that throughout our day and going to a place of appreciation and gratefulness for just the littlest things, I think, place us there. And that's our plants and our pets and our, significant others that we know we're on the same path together. So yeah, we're going to have a lot of people breaking up with their jobs and breaking up with people and breaking up with habits and breaking up with programs and breaking up with, nope, I'm not tethered to that. Cut that off. Get it off me. I don't want it,
And that's
you
a good
know?
thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good thing because now they're being freed up from all this stuff, this low energy, and now it's in the beginning, it's not like it's easy, but spirit has other plans for you,
Yes.
for those going through this, I should say. And it's for your highest and best. And just kind of remember that there's something better in store for all of us. And so yeah, this creating a peaceful, calm environment it's huge. People don't realize we've had such chaotic lives for so long that we're just not used to sitting in just silence, just no music, just nothing, just silence. And then of course the thoughts come in. You're like, wait a minute, where's your attention at any moment? Here's a check-in for everyone. Where is my attention at this moment? Is it in the past about a memory? Is it worried about something in the future? It's like, it's really right. Just kind of bring yourself back to your breath, bring yourself back into focusing on what you want to focus on. And that might be connecting with your higher self, your soul, and saying, what is it that you want to tell me today? What is it that you have for me? What is it that you want me to know? These are decisions I have in my life I need to make right now. And they're asking for guidance, and what you're doing is you're really checking into your higher self. But if we're so busy watching and all this other stuff, then we don't have the time to check in and tune in. And at some point, you get to a level where it's constant. There is no separation because you are the soul. So you're constantly connected in a sense consciously with your attention. And that takes practice, it takes years, it takes time. And so, but it's just a habit. We've gotten used to running out that we need to learn to run inward and tune in and reconnect, reconnect, reconnect. And then at some point, you just constantly stay awake and aware. So yeah, it's for a lot of us, it's just a lifestyle change, but a lot of it's habits. It's changing our habits and realizing what's really important right now. What's important to us. Actually, what's the priority?
Yeah, and if we take our prime real estate and realize that it is our priority to walk with it to the highest degree as we possibly can and not wait for a crisis or something acute to occur that gives us the momentum or the reason to jump ship or steer the train in a different direction, we can avoid those things right now if we stop, drop, sit, connect with our breath and tune in, and then fine tune where is our heart center? Where are our desires? What do we want to see in the world? How do we manifest that? Because we have to first be it and be the
Mm-hmm.
mentor and example of that. So, Nancy, once again, this was amazingly powerful. I thank you so much for taking the time today. And we're going to be continuing these subjects and also getting into more of your book Ascendance and some other things. So stay tuned, everybody. Please make sure you hit subscribe so you see Dr. Nancy as often as she is going to be coming on, because she's got some wise wisdom, tips, and tools to share with us. So anything else you want to share before we exit?
Wow, I would just have to say, love yourself and go by how you feel. If you have to make a decision, how do you feel about that? Do you have peace about it? And then you can go forward. If you don't have peace about it, there's something off. Your mind might be saying, "Oh, but this is a good deal," or "This is the way." No, if you check in with the heart chakra, check in with your feelings. Your feelings don't lie. This all logic. We're so addicted to the mind and the logic, but it's really the heart center that we really need to tune into and live our life by. And so, because so many people have said they went forward and they didn't have peace about it, and then they said, well, they knew deep down it probably wasn't the best decision. They did it anyways. And those that, regardless of what the appearance of the situation was, they said, "No, I don't have peace about it. I'm not gonna go in that direction." And come to find out, other things were revealed, and I thought, "Oh, that was the right decision to make." So anytime people don't really know, I just say this as a guidance system: go by how you feel in any given moment before you make your
Mm-hmm.
decision.
Yeah, I call it my F meter. I always have to check in with my F meter, and that's how I feel. That's how I
Mhm.
live. That's my first language to communicate with all things, is how I feel. And many of us innately came in like that, but we overpowered it with the mind. And so
Mhm.
we're not learning how to work with the feelings. So thank you so much for ending the
Yeah.
show with that important message. Let your feeling be your regulator. Let your feeling tell you when you need more alignment. Let your
Mhm.
feelings tell you when you need to expand and when you need to, you know, go more inward and then come back out, and how much inwardness you need. And let your body start barometering. Just let it start spinning, telling you where you are in the universe
Mhm.
through that heart center. All right, Dr. Nancy, say goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.